Section 1, The 4-Day Miracle begins. November 8, 1942, 2:27 p.m. Richmond, California. A whistle screams across the Kaiser shipyards. Steel plates hang suspended in midair like the ribs of some unfinished giant. Sparks rain down in golden arcs. The smell of hot metal and seawater mixes with cigarette smoke and sweat. Hundreds of workers freeze for half a heartbeat, then the foreman's voice cuts through the noise. Start the clock. A crane swings into motion. A prefabricated hull section, 40 tons of welded steel, glides across the yard and lowers into place with a hollow metallic thud. Somewhere in the crowd, a young welder named Edith Freeman wipes soot from her cheek and pulls her mask down. 4 days. That's the target. 4 days to build an ocean-going cargo ship, from keel laying to launch. Naval architects back east would have called it impossible. The U.S. Maritime Commission had once considered 230 days respectable. Even the British, masters of Atlantic shipping, couldn't move that fast. Ships were meant to be crafted, riveted slowly, carefully, by seasoned shipwrights. But this is Norfolk, it is Glasgow. This is Henry J. Kaiser's yard. And Kaiser doesn't believe in the way it's always been done. Across the Atlantic, Admiral Karl Dönitz believes something else entirely. He believes time is on his side. In 1942, German U-boats are sinking Allied merchant ships faster than America can replace them. The Atlantic is a graveyard of burning oil and broken hulls. The tonnage war, as Dönitz calls it, is arithmetic. Sink more than they build and Britain starves. He is winning. Back in Richmond, the hull taking shape before Edith Freeman is named SS Robert E. Peary. It will carry 10,000 tons of cargo across submarine-infested waters, but right now it's only a skeleton of welded plates and scaffolding. The innovation is everywhere. Instead of riveting the old way, hammering red-hot metal pins into overlapping steel, Kaiser's yard uses welding. Continuous seams of molten steel fuse the hull together like a single piece. It's faster, lighter, riskier, some say. Traditional engineers warned welded ships might crack in heavy seas. Kaiser built them anyway. Sections of the Peary didn't begin here, they arrived by rail already assembled in pieces. Entire wall panels, deck segments, bulkheads, prefabricated inland, then shipped to the coast like components of a massive industrial puzzle. Assembly line shipbuilding. Cars were built this way, not warships. But Kaiser had studied Henry Ford. If Detroit could build thousands of automobiles a day, why not ships? The yard operates in shifts around the clock. Floodlights turn night into pale imitation daylight. Women in coveralls guide welding torches with steady hands. Farmers from Oklahoma, teachers from Oregon, bank clerks from San Francisco, most had never seen a shipyard before Pearl Harbor. Now they are the front line. You can almost feel the urgency in the air. News from the Atlantic filters west. Convoys mauled, tankers exploding, lifeboats adrift in freezing water. Every delay costs lives. At 3:02 p.m., another hull section locks into place. The clock keeps ticking. This isn't just about speed, it's theater, a demonstration meant to silence critics in Washington and shock the skeptics in the Navy Department. Kaiser wants proof that ships can be mass-produced like ammunition. And he wants it done in record time. Above the noise, a banner hangs from scaffolding. Build ships to beat Hitler. Workers glance at it between welds. Somewhere beneath the hull, Edith Freeman pauses, listening to the hum of generators. She knows the rumors, that German U-boats call American shipbuilding clumsy, that Dönitz thinks America lacks discipline. 4 days. If they succeed, it will send a message across the Atlantic louder than any bomb. If they fail, critics will call the entire experiment reckless. Night falls, floodlights blaze. The Peary's frame grows taller, heavier, more real with every passing hour. The clock does not stop. And neither do they. By midnight, the hull is half complete. By dawn, exhaustion creeps into shoulders and wrists. But something extraordinary is happening. The impossible is beginning to look achievable. Still, speed has a price. And in the dark Atlantic, German periscopes are rising. Section 2, The Industrial Gamble. By the second night, the yard no longer feels like California. It feels like a battlefield. Floodlights hum overhead, turning steel into silver. Welding arcs flash like distant artillery. Cranes swing in coordinated choreography, lowering deckhouses and bulkheads into position with inch-perfect precision. The rhythm is relentless: lift, align, weld, repeat. The Robert E. Peary is no longer a skeleton. She has form now. You can walk her decks. You can hear boots ringing against steel plates that didn't exist 36 hours earlier. And yet tension hangs in the air. Because welding is faster. But welding can fail. Across the country, conservative naval architects have warned that fully welded hulls might fracture in cold Atlantic waters. Riveting, they insist, allows a ship to flex. Welding makes her rigid, brittle. One crack along a seam and the ocean will do the rest. Kaiser knows the criticism. He's heard the word reckless more than once. He ignores it. Instead, he divides the labor into specialized teams. One group fits bulkheads, another seals seams. Electricians trail behind installing wiring before access disappears forever behind steel. The process resembles an assembly line more than a shipyard. Even the workforce itself is a revolution. Nearly a third are women. Rosie the Riveter isn't a slogan here. She's on the scaffolding at 3 a.m., guiding a welding torch along a seam that must hold against Atlantic storms. Beside her, former farmhands and grocery clerks measure tolerances with calipers, learning trades that once required apprenticeships. They were not supposed to be shipbuilders. Now they are building ships faster than any professional yard in Europe. In Washington, officials from the U.S. Maritime Commission watch nervously. The demonstration is designed to impress them, to justify Kaiser's radical system. But if anything catastrophic happens during the launch, the backlash will be immediate. Speed is impressive. Failure is unforgettable. Meanwhile, 6,000 miles away, Admiral Karl Dönitz reviews sinking reports. U-boat commanders like Otto Kretschmer and Reinhard Hardegen have already sent dozens of Allied vessels to the bottom. The early months of 1942 were called the second happy time by German crews. American coastal defenses weak, convoys disorganized. Dönitz calculates numbers. If Germany can sink 700,000 tons per month, Britain collapses. It's math, brutal cold math. But what if the Americans can build faster than he can sink? Back in Richmond, the Peary's bow is sealed. Her engines, massive triple-expansion steam engines, are lowered into the hull by crane. Bolts tighten, steam lines connect. The smell of oil and hot steel thickens the air. The clock reads 60 hours. Kaiser walks the yard in a fedora, speaking little. He isn't a naval engineer. He's a builder: dams, bridges, highways. He sees ships not as sacred machines but as products. Replaceable. Expendable. That is the real gamble. Liberty ships are not elegant, they are not heavily armed. They are cargo boxes with engines designed to carry food, ammunition, trucks, fuel, designed to be lost and replaced. A German torpedo destroys one. Build another. And another. And another. The philosophy is ruthless in its simplicity. As dawn approaches on the third day, the Peary's superstructure rises into place. Workers cheer briefly, then return to their stations. There is no room for celebration yet. Because fatigue is setting in. Hands shake, welds must be inspected twice. Supervisors move quickly, scanning seams with flashlights, tapping plates, checking alignment. A single critical flaw could doom the entire spectacle. You can almost hear the question lingering beneath the clang of steel. Are they building a miracle, or a disaster waiting to crack apart in the Atlantic cold? At hour 80, the final deck plates are secured. The yard erupts in cautious applause. But there is still one test left. The water. And the Atlantic does not forgive mistakes. November 12, 1942, 3:26 p.m. Richmond Harbor. 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes after the first steel plate touched the keel blocks, the SS Robert E. Peary stands complete. Paint still glistens wet along her hull. The smell of fresh primer mixes with salt air drifting in from San Francisco Bay. Workers gather along the ways: welders, crane operators, electricians, secretaries, supervisors, faces streaked with soot and exhaustion. She is not beautiful. She is enormous. 441 feet of welded steel, a cargo capacity of over 10,000 tons, a vessel built in less time than it once took to draft blueprints. Henry J. Kaiser stands near the platform, expression unreadable. Reporters crowd beside him, cameras wait. The bottle swings. It shatters against the bow. And for a breathless second, nothing happens. Then the wooden blocks beneath her keel begin to give way. The Peary moves. Slowly at first, a groan of wood, a scream of metal sliding along greased rails. Workers instinctively step back. The hull gains momentum, sliding down the slipway toward the bay. The sound builds a thunder of mass and motion. And then she hits the water. A wave crashes outward, soaking the front rows. The ship settles, steady, floating clean and level. Tugboats surge forward, horns blaring. Cheers erupt across the yard. 4 days. Not a mock-up, not a stunt. A seaworthy Liberty ship. Kaiser allows himself the smallest nod. Around him, officials from the Maritime Commission exchange glances that say more than any speech could. Because this changes everything. Across the Atlantic, U-boat commanders depend on a simple equation: ships sunk versus ships built. The tonnage war. For 2 brutal years, German submarines have prowled convoys, calculating victory in burned hulls and drowning sailors. But what happens when the enemy builds ships faster than you can sink them? The Peary's launch is not just a record, it's proof of concept. Prefabrication works. Welding works. Untrained civilians, organized and disciplined, can outproduce Europe's centuries-old shipyards. Within months, Kaiser's yards in Richmond, in Portland, in Vancouver, Washington, will produce Liberty ships at a rate that astonishes even American planners. 3 ships a day across the nation at peak production. Over 2,700 by war's end. Dönitz will increase U-boat production in response. More submarines, wolf packs hunting deeper into the Atlantic. But American industry has found its rhythm. And rhythm beats brilliance. The Peary undergoes final fitting out, supplies loaded, boilers tested. Within weeks she will steam into Atlantic convoy lanes where periscopes wait beneath gray waves. She will face the very submarines her existence was meant to defy. The question now is whether America can build ships quickly. The question is whether speed can overcome steel tipped with torpedoes. Because even as the Peary floats proudly in San Francisco Bay, in the cold Atlantic, a U-boat captain adjusts his periscope. And he has no idea the arithmetic of the war has just shifted against him. Section 4, The Arithmetic of Defeat. January 1943, North Atlantic, 02:10 a.m. The sea is black and merciless. From the conning tower of U-603, Captain Lieutenant Hans Joachim Heckel scans the horizon. Wind cuts like a blade, spray freezes along the railing. Through his Zeiss optics, faint silhouettes emerge, a convoy, slow, heavy, vulnerable. Merchant ships. He smiles slightly. For nearly a year, this has been the pattern. Slip through the escort screen at night, fire from close range. Watch the horizon bloom with orange fire as another freighter splits open. Another cargo of fuel, wheat, ammunition sent to the bottom. The Atlantic has been Germany's hunting ground. Lows, he orders quietly. Torpedoes streak into the darkness. Minutes later, a dull explosion echoes across the water. One ship erupts in flame, another begins to list. But something is different. There are more ships than before. And behind them, more lights. Convoys that once carried 30 vessels now carry 60, 70, 80. Destroyer escorts prowl aggressively, radar sweeping the night. Overhead, the distant drone of aircraft hums. B-24 Liberators extending the air umbrella farther into the Atlantic than ever before. Heckel fires again. Another hit. Another sinking. Yet when dawn comes and U-603 slips beneath the waves to evade counterattack, the convoy is still moving. Damaged, yes, bloodied. But intact. Weeks later in Lorient, France, Admiral Karl Dönitz studies tonnage reports. He notes the sinkings carefully. 400,000 tons this month, 500,000 the next. Impressive numbers. But American shipyards are launching more than that. Liberty ships, crude, boxy, welded vessels, are appearing in staggering volume. Not dozens, hundreds. And not just in California. Shipyards in Baltimore, Savannah, Portland, New Orleans. The launch of the Robert E. Peary was no isolated spectacle, it was a signal flare. By mid-1943, the United States is producing merchant tonnage at a rate Germany cannot mathematically overcome. Even as new Type VII and Type IX U-boats leave the slips at Hamburg and Bremen, Allied anti-submarine tactics improve. Sonar grows sharper, depth charges more lethal, escort carriers fill the mid-Atlantic gap. The arithmetic is shifting. In the Peary's wake, Liberty ships steam east in endless procession. Their names blur together: SS John W. Brown, SS Jeremiah O'Brien, SS Stephen Hopkins, each one built on the same principle: speed over elegance, quantity over perfection. And each one represents something far more dangerous to Germany than any single warship. Momentum. On the eastern seaboard of the United States, the skyline of shipyards bristles with cranes. Sparks fly day and night. Women in bandanas weld seams beneath banners that read "Ships for Victory." Children collect scrap metal. Entire communities pulse to the rhythm of production. It is not glamorous. It is overwhelming. Dönitz had believed America lacked discipline, that democracy moved too slowly for total war. But democracy, when mobilized, moves like an avalanche. By late 1943, U-boat losses begin to climb catastrophically. Radar-equipped aircraft surprise submarines on the surface. Escort groups coordinate with precision. The hunters become the hunted. The tonnage war, once Germany's greatest strategic weapon, turns against its creator. And somewhere in the statistics, hidden beneath columns of numbers and loss reports, is a simple fact. A ship built in 4 days proved it could be done. Mass production wasn't theory. It was destiny. Still, there is one more question lingering in the steel corridors of history. Did those 4 days alone win the Atlantic? Or did they awaken something far more powerful? Richmond, California, late evening, winter 1943. The yard is quieter now. Not silent, never silent, but steadier, predictable, efficient. Cranes move with practiced grace. Welding arcs still flash in bursts of white-blue light. Another Liberty ship waits on the ways, hull number climbing into the hundreds. What was once spectacle is now routine. Edith Freeman steps down from a scaffold, pulling off her gloves. Her hands ache. Her shoulders burn. She has welded thousands of feet of seam since the Peary slid into the bay. No reporters follow her home. No medals hang from her coveralls. But the war has shifted. In Washington, charts track merchant tonnage with growing confidence. In London, Winston Churchill receives updates showing shipping losses declining, replacement rates rising. Convoys are arriving with food, fuel, Sherman tanks, P-51 Mustangs in crates. The Atlantic lifeline holds. And in Berlin, the mood darkens. Admiral Karl Dönitz writes in his war diary of mounting losses: U-boats failing to return, crews vanishing beneath depth charge patterns, the wolf packs once predators are thinning. He understands numbers. He always has. And the numbers no longer favor him. The Liberty ships are not invincible. Some crack in cold waters, some burn under torpedo strikes. The Atlantic still claims lives, but every loss is answered by another launch, and another. Speed has become strategy. Back in Richmond, Kaiser walks past a chalkboard listing production milestones. 3 ships launched in a single day across multiple yards. Records broken not for applause, but because repetition has made the extraordinary ordinary. The 4-day build of the Robert E. Peary was never meant to become standard practice. It was proof, a demonstration that American industry could compress time itself. And once that truth was revealed, it could not be undone. You can almost stand there beside Edith as she looks at another hull rising from prefabricated sections. Railcars still deliver steel panels stamped and ready. Welding teams still rotate in shifts around the clock. The assembly line philosophy has matured into a machine of staggering scale. Not a miracle. A system. And systems win wars. By 1944, Allied forces prepare for D-Day. The invasion of Normandy will require an ocean of supply: fuel, ammunition, food, vehicles. None of it moves without ships. Liberty ships. Unremarkable in silhouette, essential in purpose. The arithmetic that once favored Germany has reversed so completely that even bold U-boat commanders admit privately the tide has turned. The Atlantic is no longer a graveyard of Allied shipping. It is a highway. And highways feed armies. Edith never sees a U-boat, she never hears the explosion of a torpedo. But somewhere in the cold Atlantic, a convoy steams safely because another Liberty hull replaced one lost months earlier. Because she welded her seam straight. Because the clock ran for 4 days. Because Henry Kaiser refused to believe ships had to be built the old way. The war in the Atlantic was not won by a single battle. Not by one admiral. Not by one ship. It was won by multiplication, by repetition, by thousands of ordinary hands doing extraordinary work at impossible speed. And it began, or at least proved itself, the moment a whistle blew at 2:27 p.m. in Richmond and someone shouted, "Start the clock." And